born, if you can even conceive of this, before, of course, TVs were even a thing. And to envision all that has changed in her life in terms of communication, in terms of our world, and all that has changed in us because of who she is and who she became within us. Born September 30th, 1927, the middle child to Doris Wadley Hatch and Franklin Hatch. Of course, it was Frank being the oldest, Betty Jo, and then Jude, the three of them. Living on the east side, Betty Jo's family apparently did quite well. They were the first to have a TV on their entire city block. Some of the memories early on of going to Briggs Lake while growing up, there was an uncle's cottage up there. I don't even know where that is exactly, but they were a family that loved one another and certainly enjoyed time together. Attending Pershing High School, some of you know the mascot is the Doughboys. Anybody from Pershing here? One or two, maybe. The Doughboys, named after World War I General Pershing and his fighting men. As fate would have it, the youngest boy of 11 kids, Kenneth Julius Gabriel, joined his brother Lawrence in hanging out with Frank Hatch. Of course, that's Betty's older brother, Aunt Shirley, and others. Still in high school, Betty jumped into this circle. She was able to make friends quite easily. Many of you benefited from that over time, whether it was volunteering at the hospital, conversation, in a digital age when we communicate in little bursts. Betty stood out in her ability to make conversation, make people feel comfortable, for sure. But there was one that she had her eye on in particular that she wanted to make comfortable. And rumor has it that he liked her legs as well. They did many things in that group together, and one evening, so the story goes at least, when Ken was driving by, Betty went out and flagged him down to stop and wouldn't get out of the car until he kissed her. And so they were engaged while she was still in high school, and the rest, as they say, is history, right? She was a 1945 graduate, and they were married October 4th, 1946. Think of that, just a completely different era, for sure. There was a housing shortage after the war, and so the family lived with Papa's parents after they were married in a small house. His fireman's salary went to support the rest of the family for a number of years while they saved up and planned for their future. However, some things didn't take very long. After just 9 months, Kenny was born. 1947, and then of course Karen in 51 and Scott in 63. Betty Jo was a stay-at-home mom, not just because it was a role that was expected of her, or because she was spoiled like some of the housewives we see on TV, but she did it because she loved it. She loved pouring into others. She excelled at style, at friendships, and at making her home a place where she could give herself away. One person in the family said that Papa also did a lot for her, pampering her with projects and making the rest of us look bad. He put Betty on a pedestal and treated her very well. And it was a special thing to watch them interact. He was on 24 hours and off 24 hours in firefighting shifts. The kids always knew when Dad was home because they ate great. They knew when Dad was away because they ate leftovers. Right? And, it was such a challenging life. He needed that steak and needed that nurture and needed what she provided in a way that only she could provide. Sometimes, one of the memories on speaking with Ken and Jackie last night, there could be as many as 18 fire runs in a 24-hour shift. And just think of that, the emotional drain, the physical exhaustion, and the challenge of keeping the family together in the middle of those demands. Betty was up to the task. Some of their very favorite friends, Barney and Lori Wazowitz, did I pronounce that correctly? Closest friends for all of life, lived very near them in the same firehouse, served together. Kids were the same age, even vacationed together sometimes up north. Many very fond memories for the family with the Wazowitzes. Papa also knew a fireman that had a cottage up in northern Michigan, and almost every year they would rent that cottage out on Torch Lake, or sometimes go to Burt Lake, or Aloha State Park at Mullet Lake as well. And sometimes they would bring a boat. That brought on one memory from Ken last night, that one time they were on the way up, and the boat trailer blew a tire. And they were in the middle of nowhere, and there was no spare on the trailer, and so they waited for someone to come by, and he, as a teenager, had to wait there while everyone else passed. And finally they came back. I think it was maybe his dad, Ken, and Uncle Frank. And eventually Betty had to run all the way back down from probably somewhere near Grayling or Gaylord, all the way back down home to Detroit area, find a tire, go back up north, and the guys were on the side of the highway playing catch with a football the whole time, right? And so it wasn't always easy doing what she did, hosting mobily while the family vacationed. Camping getaways meant more work, and yet she didn't mind doing that. Some hobbies and some friendships that we'd like to acknowledge and share, because we knew what she meant to you. She loved to play cards. Where are the card playing ladies? Over at that table. Are there any decks already out today? Or not? Take it, bring your purse, and you're ready and waiting. Karen said that she'd sometimes say, I don't even remember how to play that game, and then she would whip your butt at it. She was in a bowling league. It's hard to believe, because she weighed about 3 bowling balls. With Aunt Louise, Judy, Lynn, and Barb. And she very much enjoyed that getaway. You didn't plan anything else on bowling night, right? She volunteered, of course, at the hospital gift shop. Any hospital friends here today? Thanks for coming. And enjoyed time with those gals, and often lunch after the shift. Some very special times together with good friends over the years. We believe she was there almost 30 years. A long time. Served a lot of people, and she was generous with her time, generous with her gifts and her heart. And that's one of the things that stands out, one of the qualities that stood out to us in remembering her as a family. She was an avid reader, always had a book in her hand, and enjoyed learning, as sometimes for entertainment, sometimes just for learning as well. Later on, while Scott was, I believe, still in school, you can correct me on this, Scott, but Betty worked at Hudson's. And if you knew her, that's entirely believable. And then in Florida, as a hostess at the Holiday Inn on the beach, called it fun money that she earned to spend on grandkids and flights, back and forth. Lori and Matt especially took, I think, almost an entire month each summer down in Pensacola, and that was Nanny's money that she sent to get them there, and enjoy times out, enjoy excursions and times together. I don't know much about this, but I had to write it down. Betty Jo is on The Price is Right. Bob Barker, is that?
It's coming.
It's coming. Okay, good. That's all I'll say on that one. All right. So she loved to travel. There was a trip out west that Karen and Jim remember early on in a camper. They went out traveling part way, and then met up. You guys had flown out, I believe, and were able to join forces all the way out to Zion and Bryce, and lots of sweet memories there, I'm sure, together. Excuse me, Yosemite as well. How many were on the 88th birthday cruise in Alaska? I've forgotten who that was, but those were special times. And thankful that you could have that. Didn't wait too long, for sure. The 90th then was up in Nova Scotia in Maine, and just some real special times. Flew to California, and then sometimes to Florida as well to visit Carolyn. And that was an important tradition for her to be with a very special family that way. she had a way with grandkids. And grandkids and great-grandkids alike could testify how sweet it was to have a nanny that poured into them and always seemed to know just what gift to give. And if not, if you had to return it, you'd often be surprised at how much money she spent on you, right? Lori and Matt, as I mentioned, spent a month in Florida during the summer. There were poolside times. There was riding of bikes with Nanny, watching Papa go out on fire runs, in the volunteer fire department that he founded. And all of that produced just some real sweet bonding and some special times that will be cherished. There was definitely a special relationship with Kirsten and Katie, and being available for some of your special years. Soccer games, performances, and more performances. Horses, riding bikes, just sweet times shared with the family. And we're grateful. Not every grandkid has that experience with their grandparent, and so that's something really to be grateful for. Came up from Florida, previous to that, for Christmases and gatherings. Lori has a memory of she and Papa having the shrimp in old milk cartons that were frozen, and they would put them in the car and drive them up and then enjoy them together. So many. Donovan, Ryan, Justin, of course. So many memories. Great grandkids as well. Just some real tender moments. She made herself available at key times in your lives and enjoyed how you shared yourself with her. Nanny always made friends wherever she went. And she could make you feel like a friend even if you hadn't seen her for some time. She could make you feel very special. There's a group of Sunday school friends from when she was very young. She maybe was not one that was real vocal about her faith, but we actually received a Bible that she had gotten in that Sunday school cluster, and we had definitely some deep talks, especially as she became weakened in her later years. And as I mentioned at the graveside, we believe that she had a relationship with Jesus, the Savior, and that she's enjoying Him face to face now. Lenora especially was a long-term friend that had just passed, I think, a couple years ago. Is that correct? And so just some real special memories there. Karen shared, just in terms of fun memories, when maybe she was 13, Nanny was known to do some really fun things with them. Took her to a Beatles concert and dropped her off with her friends, and they forgot to specify which door to come out of the main concert hall. And so when they got out, they were just about to start asking around, maybe even asked one cop, "Have you seen my mom?" But it just so happened that she pulled up at the right place, and she was available. In a time when a lot of people are struggling with being over busy and being available in bursts, you had the blessing of having someone that was available a lot. Yeah, that makes a difference in our lives for sure. She was the last surviving person from her generation on both the Hatch and the Gabriel side. And we're saddened today that we couldn't have some of our Canada contingent. I'm not sure where we put them. But, that's special. And so we want to encourage you. Sometimes it's said that, grief is in nice, neat stages, and loss you work through, and then you're done. But that's not my experience, and that's certainly not what I've learned from others. That you can be watching 3 generations walking through the mall or the zoo, and it touches you, and you remember, and you feel a sense of sadness on the one hand, but you also feel gratitude that you had those times. And so this is your opportunity, I guess, to begin to share with one another. It's the memories that you share, the stories, the tributes, the qualities that I think are an important part of healing and an important part of remembering as well. And so Katie is going to come and share from her heart some special memories of her.
Thank you. try to project theater background. Thank you, Pete, and thank you all for coming. My grandmother loved all of you like you were her own family. To me, Betty Jo Gabriel was the epitome of 1940s glamour. She was the one that taught me how to shop, how to accessorize, and yes, even once helped me snag a date. It's true. Except her family, above all else, Nanny loved a good deal. She taught my sister and I how to always go to the back of the store first because that's where all the best deals were. So it is utterly becoming of my grandmother that the pearls that she passed on to my sister, my niece, and myself were from The Price is Right. 62 years ago, Nanny flew to New York City with her Aunt Elsie, and I can't imagine what an adventure that must have been to fly on a plane like that in 1959 across the country.
Wow.
They went to see The Price is Right. I think it was before Bob Barker even. It was October 6th, 1959. And Nanny famously won her 4-strand pearl necklace. And they flew home the next day. Emma, we're going when you're 30. Now, I don't recall ever seeing the necklace on my grandmother. But when she passed, my mom and Kirsten and I went through Nanny's jewelry box, and we were deciding who should get what and what we should pass on to our cousins. And when we came upon the necklace, my sister and I had some words. So we thought of a plan to share them and trade the pearls back every year. Now, as we looked more closely at the pearls, we were heartbroken to realize the pearls weren't real. Now, my mom says that Nanny always swore up and down they were real, but I wonder if maybe she knew. But regardless of whether or not she knew, they were real to her. She didn't question it. I'm gonna lose it. She treasured them, and Nanny loved them all the same, and so would we. So when I took the necklace to a jeweler's to be repaired, they told me it was falling apart with age, and they weren't sure what they could do. So eventually they decided to split the 4-strand necklace into 2 single strands to save as much as the original plastic material as they could. And these are the necklaces that Kirsten and I have on today. I like to think that Nanny made sure that we wouldn't have to share. And they also had enough pearls left over to make a very small necklace with the original clasp that I thought would be perfect for a little girl named Emma, who has those on today as well. So thinking about this story, there's a lot of allegories that I could draw, but all that to say, Nanny didn't care if the pearls were real. She loved them all the same, and this translated to the rest of her life. When I introduced her to my husband Jay and his kids, she didn't care that it wasn't my first marriage or that they weren't my biological children. She loved them immediately, and she called them her family. Sorry. She didn't question it. And I saw this pattern repeated again and again throughout my grandmother's life. Whether you were her beloved Ken, a Gabriel, a Hatch, a Wadley, all of the Jensens, whether you were married in, adopted, stepfamily, a distant cousin, a friend she just met, a card club lady, an old neighbor, or let's be honest, a perfect stranger, she loved you all the same. So while she was teaching me about fashion and accessories, men and jewels, my grandmother embodied the most glamorous lesson of all. And it's one that I hope you all will carry on in her ever-loving and ongoing spirit. Just love them all the same.